I'll never forget the moment I saw it. The photo was plastered all over social media, my parents, on a perfect beach in Bali, laughing without a care in the world. My mom was holding up some fancy cocktail, grinning ear to ear with a caption that read, "Living the dream. YOLO." But here's the thing. It wasn't their dream they were living. It was mine. They were sipping mojitos paid for by my grandmother's love and my future. They had drained my entire inheritance, every last cent, to fund this little getaway. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. I literally couldn't breathe. But as I stared at their smiling faces, the shock started to curdle into something else. Something cold and sharp. A plan. They thought they'd just bought a vacation. What they'd actually bought was a one-way ticket to their own ruin. My grandma was the only one who ever really got me. My parents were always busy keeping up with the Joneses, obsessed with looking richer than they were. I was basically a prop in their life movie. But Grandma? She was my rock. She told me she was putting money away for me, a nest egg to give me the start she knew my parents wouldn't. When she died, the grief was overwhelming, but I had this one comfort, a trust fund, locked up tight until I turned 25. The week of my 25th birthday, I walked into the bank feeling excited and a little nervous. I was thinking about my grandma and all the doors she was opening for me. I sat down with the bank manager, who pulled up my file. His friendly smile just melted off his face. He turned to the screen, then back to me, and said, "I'm so sorry, but this account was completely emptied 6 weeks ago." The world went fuzzy. All I could hear was blood rushing in my ears. Emptied? How? He explained that my parents, as co-trustees, had been granted access. He showed me the paperwork. Their signatures, as clear as day, on a withdrawal slip for the entire amount. The transfer was dated 2 days before that first Bali picture went up. The manager mumbled something about how the trust wasn't structured as securely as it should have been, giving them way too much control. That night, I called them. The connection was awful, full of tinny music and crashing waves. When I finally got my dad on the line, he sounded annoyed I was interrupting his good time. I asked him about the money. There was a beat of silence. Then he laughed. A cold, dismissive laugh. "Oh, that," he said. "Listen, we deserved a break. All those years of hard work, you're young, you can make your own money. We needed this." My mom got on the other line. "Don't be so dramatic," she chirped. "It's just money. Besides, you wouldn't have known what to do with it. Think of it as our retirement bonus." It wasn't just that they stole it. It was the total lack of shame. The fact that they thought they were entitled to it. They hadn't just stolen from me, they had spit on my grandmother's memory. Crying in my tiny apartment that night, I knew this wasn't just a betrayal. It was a declaration of war. And I had no intention of losing. The first couple of weeks were a total blur of anger and just feeling worthless. How could the two people who were supposed to protect me do this? But under all that pain, something else was catching fire. They thought I was a weak little girl who would just cry and move on. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. This wasn't just about getting my money back. I wanted to dismantle their entire phony life, piece by piece. First thing I did was lawyer up. I found a guy who specialized in estate law, a real shark who lived for family drama. When I laid out the whole story, showing him the bank statements and the Instagram posts, his eyes lit up. He told me that as trustees, what they did wasn't just wrong, it was a massive breach of their legal duty. Basically, it was theft. He said suing them to get a court order for the money back was a no-brainer. But I knew they'd already blown most of it. A court judgment is just a piece of paper if they have no money to pay it with. I needed more. I had to hit them from all sides. I started thinking about their perfect life. How did they afford it? I remembered them bragging about some clever side hustle they had going. So, I started digging. I spent my nights digging through public records, old social media posts, anything I could find. And then, bingo. Grandma's house. In her will, the house was supposed to be sold, with the money going into my trust. But they never sold it. I found out they were renting it out, under the table, for cash. Thousands of dollars every month in untaxed income. And that's when the whole plan clicked into place. It was a three-pronged attack. 1. The lawsuit. My lawyer would have them served the second they stepped off the plane. We'd sue for the full inheritance, plus damages. The evidence was ironclad. He warned me it wouldn't be overnight, but that they had no real defense. 2. The IRS. An anonymous and very, very detailed tip about years of undeclared rental income. I had the address, my estimate of the cash they were pocketing, all of it. The government does not mess around with tax fraud. The back taxes and penalties alone would be devastating. 3. The house itself. This was the part that made me smile. I hired a private inspector to check the place out. He found a dozen city code violations from the street alone. Another anonymous tip, this time to the Department of Buildings. The fines would be huge, and they'd be forced to do repairs they had no way to pay for. I gathered all my evidence. My rage had turned into a cold, hard focus. They were off enjoying the last few days of their 2-week vacation, with no idea they were coming home to a life that I had already torn apart. My parents came home looking tan, relaxed, and incredibly smug. They dropped their designer shopping bags on the floor of their foyer and didn't even have time to start unpacking before the doorbell rang. It was a process server with the lawsuit. I watched it all from my car down the street. The look of pure shock on my father's face was better than I ever imagined. The Bali glow was gone. Their arrogance turned to pure panic. My phone blew up with texts and voicemails, swinging wildly from angry threats to pathetic begging. They couldn't believe I would do this to my own family. I ignored every single call and let my plan do the talking. The lawsuit was a slow grind, but my lawyer was right, it was a sure thing. The judge was disgusted by what they'd done and ordered them to repay every dime, plus punitive damages. Just as I figured, they claimed they were broke. The judge didn't care and ordered a full accounting of all their assets. A week later, the second bomb dropped. A thick, official-looking envelope from the IRS arrived. The audit into their little side hustle had begun. Then came the third hit. The city inspector showed up at Grandma's house and found a mess of code violations. The city slapped them with fines that made the potential IRS bill look small. Their cash cow was gone, and now it was a money pit. They were drowning in legal fees, IRS notices, and city fines. It was the perfect financial storm. They had to put their own house on the market, a desperate fire sale to try and cover their debts. And that's when I made my final move. Through my lawyer, I set up a shell company. When their house went up for sale, we swooped in. They were so desperate they had to accept our lowball offer. They had no idea it was me. When the sale closed, they found out that after paying the lawyers and the initial liens, the rest of the money wasn't going to them. It was going to their biggest creditor, me. The last time I saw them, they were loading cardboard boxes into a U-Haul. I pulled up and got out of my car. My father's face was a twisted mask of pure hatred. "Are you happy now?" he spat. "You've ruined us." "You did this," I said, my voice perfectly calm. "You stood on a beach and laughed about stealing from me. You laughed about betraying your own daughter and desecrating Grandma's memory. You thought it was just money. It was never just money. It was about trust. This isn't revenge. This is a consequence." My mother just stood there sobbing, a broken woman who finally realized how much that Bali cocktail really cost. I got back in my car and drove away without looking back. In the end, they lost everything. Their house, their savings, their reputation with all those friends they cared so much about. They live in a tiny, run-down apartment now, buried in a debt that'll follow them to the grave. It's a fitting end. I got my grandmother's house back in the sale. I've spent the last year fixing it up, pouring love into the walls, making it the home she always wanted me to have. The financial betrayal was bad, but knowing your own parents could throw you away so easily, that's a scar that will probably never fade. But taking everything from them wasn't just about getting even. It was about taking my life back. It was about standing up for myself and for my grandma. The betrayal almost broke me, but I came out the other side stronger and, for the first time, in control of my own future. They're left with nothing but what they created, a reminder that some debts can never be repaid. If this story resonated with you, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell for more tales of justice and revenge. And I have to ask, what would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments below.